Right then, if the purpose of the last video was getting into your exercise kit, then this one's a proper stretching of the mental machinery before we set out on a whirl around our practice reports. After all, I could talk about Power BI for some considerable time, but looking at it is actually better. In this lesson, we're going to take what we saw in the first video about the 4 different elements of Power BI, and we're going to see what they look like in practice in Power BI Desktop itself. But before we step off this slide, do you remember what the 4 elements of Power BI are? Feel free to look back at the slides from the last video if you need to. This isn't a test, well, not a serious one. We're just trying to get you familiar with the tools you're going to have at your disposal when you have a first go at building your own report at the end of this course. There are 4 different elements, just see if you can write them down. Are you ready? I'll put them on screen. Okay, if you weren't sure where to look for the answer to that one, then here's the slide to look for. This one is right at the end of the last video slide deck. Now, the plan for the remainder of this video is to look through Power BI in the order that you would if you were to start building a report. Job 1 then, open Power BI Desktop. Okay, first guidepost stuck on the pavement is this one here, which asks you what you'd like to do. Perhaps open a new report by using the Get Data button or by opening a previous report. Now you won't be able to open a previous report, of course you don't have one yet, so you can just click on the little cross in the top right hand corner to get off this screen. In the meantime, am going to open one of the reports that we're going to build shortly. Right, straight away we're onto the report view, but we're going to pretend that we haven't got any of these lovely visuals waiting, and we're going to pretend that we need some data. Which Power BI element do we need? Ah yes, Power Query. Now to get into Power Query, we can hit this Get Data button. Alternatively, if we've already got data waiting, like I have, and we just want to get back into Power Query, then we can use the Transform Data button. That's what I'm going to do. Now the first thing to engage the cerebral grey matter will probably be the preview screen, which is the table structure that takes up about 60% of the screen. This preview screen brings in an exact replica of the first 1,000 or so rows of the dataset to which we've connected. Then we've got headers at the top, and then we have scrolling bars on the right hand side and at the bottom if we need them. Now, a very big signpost straight away. For those of you who are coming in from an Excel background, or quite possibly Google Sheets, you cannot edit individual cells as you are probably used to in Excel or in Google Sheets. Feel free to try, but I promise you, attempts will be futile. Instead, when we perform actions, we perform them over rows or over columns. Okay, do you remember in the last video that I said that you could use Power Query to change data from a dirty to a clean state? Or to look at it in another way, we can use Power Query to make changes to the structure of a dataset. These changes are called steps. The preview screen will change as you move through the different transformational steps, demonstrating how the data looks after each step. So how do you in Power Query know which steps to perform and in what order? Well, that's what the Query Settings pane on the right hand side of the screen does. This pane over here is the one that records all of the transformational steps. It is possible that you won't have it straight away, and if you were a keen bean and already following along, and that's okay, we'll sort out that particular issue in the first report. Whenever you perform a step in Power Query on the data in the preview screen, like removing rows or creating new columns, then you'll have a new step pop up on the Query Settings pane detailing the step that you chose. It is by this seemingly modest and insignificant part of Power Query that Power BI is able to automate transformation of datasets, as well as automatically pick up changes to connected datasets. The pane always starts with the source step, that's the one at the top, and this one tells you where Power Query has found the dataset that you see in the preview screen. You can remove steps that you don't like, or which have caused you grievous insult, by clicking on the little cross next to them. If, however, you just need to modify the step, then click on the cog next to the step. Over on the left-hand side of the screen, you've got the various datasets that are connected into the Power BI or PBIX file. Some of the datasets called queries, as they are querying a dataset, are direct connections to a file held in a folder or to a database somewhere. Some queries can instead be based on other queries. Whatever table in each query that is left on the preview screen on the final step in the query settings pane will be produced in the data model. Some query names are in italics, which means that the tables of data that result from them don't go into the data model. They don't quite make it. Those query names that are not in italics, they do make it. They do go into the data model. So how do you tell Power Query to perform all of these wonderful transformations? That would be the job of the ribbon at the top of the screen. There's loads of commands available, which makes transforming a dataset really straightforward, and pretty much all you need to do is press the button that does what you want. At least at the beginning. If you don't find the right button, then you can cycle through the tabs at the top, as there are plenty more commands available. Now, last up on the Power Query tool is the formula bar, which is just underneath the ribbon. Again, if you're following along and you don't have this, then that's fine. We'll sort it out in the first report. This formula bar shows the code behind each of the transformational steps that we have in the query settings pane. So if we scroll through the steps and click on them, you can see that the code changes. Right, that's it for the moment on Power Query. To summarize, you use it to connect to datasets, and then when you have connected to those datasets, you use the ribbon at the top to perform transformations on the dataset. You and Power Query keep track of those transformations in the query settings pane on the right, and you keep track of the queries you have on the pane to the left. When you're done, you load your queries to the data model using the Close and Apply button up here. Righty-ho, data model next. Well, we've actually returned to the report view first, and to get to the right view we need to hit this little button over here on the left marked Table View. The table view shows all the tables that you've loaded into the data model, but not just the first 1,000 rows like you have in Power Query, the whole table, every single row. You can easily filter data in this view using the drop-down arrows on the headers, and data is filtered a lot more quickly than it is in Power Query. On the right-hand side, you have the data pane, which shows all the queries that are available in the file and that you loaded into the data model. If you want to swap between the tables that you want to look at, then click on any table header in the data pane. On the other hand, if you want to see the subfields underneath the title, then click on the little arrows next to the table titles and the table list will expand so that you can see a list of all of the fields. Okay, just like in Power Query, at the top of the screen we have a ribbon with different commands. There's also ribbons in the report view and the model view, and both of these are very similar to that in the table view. Most of the commands are in the Home tab, and you can perform actions like creating new columns, creating new tables, creating measures, getting back into Power Query, refreshing the PBIX file or the Power BI file if there's been a change in the underlying dataset. There's also a Table Tools column, which by and large holds very similar commands. You can also bring up some additional tabs by clicking on objects such as columns or measures in the data pane. For example, if I click on this column here, then we can change the name of the tables, we can sort out data types, do formatting of the columns, and a few other helpful bits and pieces. Finally then in this view we have the formula bar, but this is a slightly different formula bar from that you see in Power Query. The formula bar in Power Query shows you the code behind each transformational step, whereas the formula bar everywhere else in Power BI shows the code behind calculated columns or measures created outside Power Query. We'll get to those. So here's an example of the formula bar. So the table view is just one part of the data model, while the other half is called the model view. So let's go there next, which we can do through going to the model view button over on the left-hand side of the screen. In this Power BI or PBIX file, you can see different squares representing the 5 different tables present in this file, and then a number of lines between each of them. These lines represent the relationships between the datasets. Over on the right hand side, you once again have a data pane, which is exactly the same as the one in the table view, showing a list of all the datasets held in the file and the underlying fields. There's also a properties pane, but the options in it aren't going to make a whole lot of sense right now, so we'll go through it once we get to relationships in report 3. We then go on to element 3, the report view. Now to get to the report view, we click on the little button to the left above the table view and the model view. We're then presented with the report view. So the report view has a white section front and center called the canvas. This is where we can pop all of our pretty pictures and graphs to tell our data's story. If we run out of space, then we can use the plus button at the bottom of the page to add additional worksheets to our report. Now, where do our visualizations come from, you may ask? Cast your eyes to the right of your screen and you'll spot the visualizations pane. Here is where we get to choose our graphs, charts and slices, and there's a nice selection at the top to choose from. Some are better than others in different scenarios, so choosing the right one can really make a difference to your report. If you want to format the look and style of visualizations, then click on the paintbrush icon at the top of the visualizations pane, and plenty of formatting options will appear. Some formatting options will be specific to each visual, while others like bordering or titles will be available regardless of your visualization fancies. Right, you've got your visualization options now. The next job will be to populate the visuals with some data. Otherwise, you're just looking at a sad empty shell of a visual. Underneath the options for the visuals on offer for your delectation, we have a number of windows that are just begging for some fields to be added to them. The number of windows will change depending on the complexity of the visual, but the user interface or UI is not dissimilar to the field list of a pivot table and works in a similar way. If you happen to be familiar with pivot tables in Excel, of course. No worries if you're not, we'll go through it all here anyway. With a shell of a visual, you need some data to add to your visualizations pane, and there's one more pane to the right in the data pane. The data pane, just like in the data view, holds a list of all the tables that have been loaded in from Power Query and all of the underlying fields. If you want to load some of the data into a visualization, then just select a visual and then click on the tick box next to the field in the data pane. Alternatively, click and hold a field and then drag the field into a window in the visualizations pane. You can even drag it straight into an empty visual. After that, to the left-hand side of the visualizations pane, we also have the filters pane, which is currently collapsed in my screen. This pane allows us to control the information going into the visualizations, the page, or the entire report to just certain values in tables. Any fields in a visual will automatically be added to the filter pane, but you can add other filters too. This one, perhaps for the beginner, is a little more complex, and we get to this one again in around about report 2 or 3. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a Microsoft product or any sort of software really without a ribbon at the top, and the report view is no exception. Along the top of the screen, you will find a ribbon with various tabs and commands present and correct. This one is more extensive than the ribbon we found in the model view or table view, with a significant amount of additional commands. But seeing as the report view is where you'll spend most of your time creating reports, perhaps that's not surprising. Finally, in the report view, we also have another formula bar, which acts in the same way as it does in the data view, showing us the code behind calculated columns and measures. To pull it up, simply go to the data pane, as we did in the data view, and then click on a measure or a calculated column, and you can see the code behind the measures and columns. Now that concludes the tour of Power BI Desktop. Once you've shut up shop here, the next job is to park your report in Power BI Online. So let's go there next. Okay, to get into Power BI Online, click on your internet browser and then type in powerbi.com into the URL. Now, if you haven't visited here before, then you'll probably need to sign in with your school or work email address and Microsoft password. But once you're in, you'll find a screen like this. Now, we'll start on the left and we see a series of buttons. First, we'll take the home button that will always bring you back to this screen. Then after that, you have a create button, which allows you to create reports from data uploaded to the Power BI service. This can be data that other people have uploaded for their own reports, data that you upload, or something like a live connection option, where a company has an IT team developing a database of data from different parts of an entity. The Browse button allows us to look at reports that have been shared with us or that we look at frequently, and the Data Lake section underneath we're going to skip over as it's a little advanced for this course. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to 3 more zones. My Workspace, which is at the bottom of this panel, is your own personal filing cabinet of reports to which only you have access unless you want to invite others. You also have a Workspace button, which is where you can create online back-office filing systems to which you can load reports that are marked for sharing with your wider community. In the Workspace, you can test the reports and ask others to test them prior to releasing them widely in an app, which is an online front office filing system where you can share reports with anyone in the company and beyond that if you want to. Okay, so that's the 4 elements of Power BI sorted out. Power Query, Data Model, Report View, Power BI Service. Done, dusted, and hopefully easy peasy. Now, the exciting part. Next, we're moving on to reports.